Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we pit two or more fictional characters against each other in a battle of strength or wits and see who would win. But when you get right down to it, what's the real nature of a podcast? It may not be flesh and blood, but just because a podcast is some amateurly edited audio of a bunch of idiots yelling into a microphone, does that mean it's not human? Is a podcast craving for 5-star iTunes reviews really any different from any of our desires and fears? In the end, it may be that podcasts are far more human than we think. Or maybe, just maybe,
Jesus
we
Christ.
are all far more podcasts than we think. What was I saying? Oh yeah, this week, Rick Deckard versus Major Kusanagi.
Why does anyone like this show?
Kit, you asked the really penetrating question.
I'll take that as a compliment. The year is 20XX. The place is San Francisco. The city has undergone some changes. The skyscrapers have become taller and more monolithic. Gigantic Japanese language advertisements are projected onto every available surface, and hovercars cut their way through the skies above the rain-soaked city streets. The Great Hokkaido Trez breakout and resulting superhuman clash is but a thing of the past, a footnote in San Francisco's history book as the city moves ever further into its glorious but increasingly noir-looking future. And then, one night, the sound of an explosion booms across the city. Several of the older San Franciscans, remembering the explosion that triggered the now historic jailbreak, lunge for their carefully maintained stockpiles of food, bottled water, and ammunition. But thankfully, there is no resulting EMP, and the systems of the city and its prisons are left intact. Instead, mere feet from where Thor's hammer touched down in the city years before, lies an alien ship. Its still smoking metallic exterior shows long black scorch marks from the heat of atmospheric re-entry, and large pools of some sort of liquid spill forth from the numerous smashed and cracked areas of its hull. Officials quickly cordon off the area, but eventually, caution gives way to curiosity. The city's best cyber cop, the brilliant and tough-as-nails Inspector Tyler Fullman, examines the strange cyber-organic computer systems within, and eventually determines that this ship had been carrying a single passenger, an alien cyborg known as a Cylon. Physically indistinguishable from a human, but many times stronger, tougher, faster, and smarter, and with the directive to infiltrate the native population before performing acts of sabotage, terrorism, and destruction, the Cylon is a nightmare scenario for the human race, and he's loose in the streets of San Francisco. Unfortunately, the city officials have no interest in Inspector Fullman's story. There's no way anything could have survived that crash, they say dismissively. Besides, it's almost tourist season. Do you want to see what happens to tourist season when an APB is put out for a killer alien robot? Fullman presses the point, but the chief of police tells him in no uncertain terms that if he catches Fullman looking into this, it'll be Fullman's badge. Fortunately, Fullman isn't without his own contacts. That night, he makes 2 calls. The first is to Los Angeles, to a former Blade Runner by the name of Rick Deckard. Fullman and Deckard worked the same case years ago when a rogue replicant fled LA to San Francisco. Fullman reminds Deckard that Deckard totally owes him one for saving his life during the final confrontation with the replicant, and Deckard begrudgingly agrees to head to San Francisco and track down this Cylon. The second call is made to Tokyo, specifically to the Ministry of Internal Affairs Public Security Section 9. Fullman had worked with one of Section 9's agents several years ago during a trip to Japan, where he and Major Motoko Kusanagi shut down a cyborg crime syndicate looking to destabilize the Japanese economy. Fullman reminds Kusanagi that she totally owes him for helping her gather the information that led to their discovery of the syndicate's hidden base, and she begrudgingly agrees to come to the States and take out this robo-threat. Sadly, their first meeting doesn't go so well. Deckard can't trust Kusanagi after she refuses to take his weird eye-blink replicant test, and she refuses to work with anyone she can't speak to silently through wireless implants. The two part ways on bad terms, both still intending to track down and take out the Cylon, but they're going to be working alone. All the while, Inspector Tyler Fullman sits at his desk, head in his hands. Why, oh why, can't people just be reasonable and competent for once? But that is not the rhetorical question put before us here today. That question, of course, is, which of these neo-noir investigators has what it takes to find and dispatch San Francisco's most unwanted pre-tourist season tourist? Let me tell you, I am lost like tears in rain when it comes to investigating robocrime, so I, Dan Mulcairn, will be your judge this week. Representing Rick Deckard are MeganBob.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Kit pretending to be Peter Lowe from Vampire's Kiss. Colin having a religious crisis. Dan rapping like a man possessed. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Except we made this podcast so they'll live forever.
And Miles Schneiderman.
No, I'm telling you guys, the top never stops spinning. He's still in the goddamn dream. Wait, what are we doing?
Representing Motoko Kusanagi are Kit Mulcairn.
BRB, hacking into Miles and Bob's files now. Oh shit. I took a wrong turn.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Oh no, I think I found Bob's not safe for work fanfics. Not safe for anywhere fanfics.
7 internets worth.
Oh god. Okay, just go. I gotta run a boot time scan on my brain.
And Colin Mulcairn.
Looks like someone brought a Blade Runner to a gunfight.
In order to determine who goes first this week, I decided to take a page from Alan Turing's book and had each team engage in an online conversation with someone and charge them with trying to determine whether or not that someone was a robot. In actuality, both teams were unknowingly just talking to each other the whole time. Team Deckard guessed that Team Kusanagi were robots, so they were disqualified. Team Kusanagi also guessed that Team Deckard were robots, and they won! Turns out Miles and MeganBob have been secret robots the whole time. Now you have to go back through our entire catalog and pick out the clues we've been sprinkling in since episode 1. But in the meantime, Team Kusanagi will be starting us off.
I can't even with this. Telling me I'm not human? What is happening?
I'm sorry, you shouldn't have had to hear it like this.
I know, it's been a hell of a ride, Miles.
What is reality?
Team Kusanagi, come on out of your shell.
I can understand why Blade Runner fans still debate whether Deckard is a replicant or a human. You know, it's really hard to tell, because replicants are designed to be indistinguishable from average humans, and Deckard is about as average as they come. Honestly, I think average might be a little too generous. He's like your weird, alcoholic, paunchy uncle. When it comes to Motoko Kusanagi, on the other hand, anyone who gets on her bad side quickly learns that there is no way that this literal killing machine is anything but superhumanly fit, superhumanly smart, and superhumanly ruthless. If they live long enough to have that revelation, which, let's be real, they never do. Major Motoko Kusanagi is the field commander of Section 9, an elite black ops arm of the government that is so elite and so secret that many people outside of it don't even believe that it exists. She's an unparalleled tactician, hacker, investigator, and soldier who's not just physically superhuman due to her cybernetic body, but also mentally superhuman due to her cybernetic brain. Blade Runner is a detective story in easy mode. It opens with Deckard being given a list of the 4 people that he has to catch, and then him going off to catch them. The evidence is pretty much a clear straight line, and so Deckard never really has to put any difficult pieces together in order to figure out his next move. It's basically like a LucasArts point-and-click adventure game. Find snake scale. Use snake scale on microscope. Use gun on unarmed women. Use whiskey on depression.
Oh,
Ghost
Colin,
on-
that is
that
definite
works.
pandering to me.
Ghost in the Shell, on the other hand, is... Okay, Miles, I got a job for you. Explain the plot of Ghost in the Shell to me.
I mean, I will if you support the podcast on Patreon and then get your suggestion voted in. I'll explain the hell out of it for you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It is a labyrinthine mess, both in the film and in the series.
Because I can actually do it if you want.
No, it's alright.
It was your Turing test, basically. And you
Oh no! Damn it! Again! The humanity!
You ain't got
there-
any.
Yeah, there's no humanity. That's the problem.
I know!
Both in the film and in the series' standalone complex, Kusanagi is pretty much never given a clear objective about who her targets are and what they want, at least not at first. She usually starts off by finding the aftermath of a crime, typically perpetrated by someone who has been remotely hacked, and then she has to construct a psychological profile of who her target is and what they want before she can start kicking down doors and capping fools. Because of this, she has a lot more experience with putting herself in someone else's shoes and predicting what they'll do next. She does this to the puppet master in the film, she does this to the laughing man in the series. Kusanagi shows time and time again that she is able to intuit the truth based on extrapolations from even the faintest whispers of clues. As Wayne Gretsky says, "You should go where the puck is going, not where it has been." Kusanagi's skill at psychological profiling means that she's going to understand who this Cylon is, what motivates them, and where they'll be next. Whereas Deckard's detective skills, which are all about finding physical evidence in the physical world, means he's going to be constantly looking backwards, while Kusanagi is looking forwards. Her computer skills are also going to give her an enormous edge in this map. When Section 9 discovers that the perp they are chasing is an on-duty garbage man, Motoko accesses the routes of all the garbage trucks in the city and figures out which one just drove by the place where the most recent cybercrime was launched from. Because of this, Division 9 is able to catch the perp and his supplier within minutes. If Deckard was on the case, it would have taken him half a movie to put all this together. If and when our two investigators find the Cylon, it's going to come down to comparing Kusanagi and Deckard's combat skills and gear. I'm kind of reminded here of the Han versus Mal match, where I spent a lot of time highlighting all the ways in which the Millennium Falcon was superior to the Serenity, and then the other team just gave us that point, and it kind of ended up being a waste of my opening argument time. So do I even need to explain why Motoko Kusanagi is physically superior to friggin' Rick Deckard? She can turn invisible. She can see through solid objects. She can run up walls and leap between skyscrapers. She's such an amazing marksman that at one point in the series, she shoots a fleeing suspect in the ankle, amputating his foot. Later, in Season 2, a gangster tries to execute someone with a sword, and she shoots the sword blade mid-swing, causing it to split in half. Whenever she faces an enemy with superior firepower, who she needs to take alive, she uses her superior stealth and maneuverability to goad them into running out of ammo so that she can incapacitate them in hand-to-hand combat. The only way that Deckard is going to be able to apprehend his Cylon quarry, if he ever even manages to find them, is if they happen to die of old age at a convenient moment.
Rick Deckard will be as effective in this match as the name Blade Runner is at describing what it is a Blade Runner actually does. If Deckard did have blades on his person as he ran around being a shitty gumshoe, I didn't see him. The guy's got a history of getting the job done, I get that. But let's really get in there and analyze that eyeball, so to speak. Speaking of, replicants! They ain't even robots. They ain't even robots. Most are just slightly more athletically capable humans with the built-in lifespan of a gerbil. It's mostly accepted that Deckard himself is supposed to be a replicant. If that is the case, why can't the man do a single fucking pull-up? What are those arm muscles even for? Realigning his fingers after the actually superhuman replicant Roy Batty snaps them out of place? Deckard basically spends the entire climax of the movie fleeing for his life from a dying replicant that is losing his mind. If Roy wasn't dying and chose not to have a dramatic monologue with an audience of Deckard and a random white pigeon, Rick would have been a dead man. Why was that pigeon there? For real, please. Somebody tweet at me. Why was
symbolism? You gotta read.
Where did it come from?
I'm still over here trying to figure out why you think it's mostly accepted that Deckard is a replicant. So
no, Miles, we're talking about something serious. Where did the pigeon come from? Did he pull it out of his chest like Bender? What?
Speaking of uselessly burning your opening arguments time.
All right. Okay, let's look at how Deckard dealt with more standard replicants, starting with Leon, the mustachioed one. Sure, Leon the professional, this guy ain't, but he still grabs a very obviously scared Deckard and slams him into nearby vehicles over and over until he decides it's time for the cyber gumshoe to die. Then blam! Rachel shoots mustache replicant in the head, saving ol' Rick. How about Pris, the blonde replicant that pretends to be a doll? She was kicking Rick's ass until she decided she wanted to kill him with some sweet flips, giving him the opening to shoot her. It was her dumbass fault for not kicking his gun away from him and not any skill of Deckard's that kept him alive in that scene. How about the first replicant, Zora, the entertainer with the snake? First of all, Deckard does so poorly on his deception roll that Zora totally knows he's onto her, and then she tricks him. She gets him to busy his hand to the towel and let his guard down so she can chop him right in the throat. This sends him reeling backwards and falling onto his back. She then starts choking him out with his own tie and would have killed his helpless dumbass if another entertainer hadn't walked into the room, forcing her to flee. Deckard chases after her and eventually shoots the woman in the back. So tough.
Although, I heard in the George Lucas version of that film, Zora totally shot first, so.
Very good.
Wow.
The little known edit of Blade Runner.
I like how it had to set in. It did for me too when I first heard the joke.
We all just thought about our choices.
Finally, let's analyze Deckard's detective style. I call him a gumshoe because that's what he straight up is. Unfortunately for him, he's basically a grown-up tracer bullet. Even with all the technology that surrounds him in this setting, he goes about tracking down his marks in the most old-fashioned way possible and getting the shit kicked out of him in every step. While Major Kusanagi will be plugging herself into the entirety of human knowledge, surely with special government-only access stuff unlocked, Deckard will be making his way around with a photo of the Cylon in his hand, wasting time botching diplomacy and bluff checks. The opposition will claim Deckard's the better detective, I'm sure, and so we'll find the Cylon first, but come on. I'll put it this way. If Kusanagi is like a millennial with the latest, fastest GPS and internet tech on her smartphone, Deckard is like your grandpa who still insists on printing out MapQuest directions before going anywhere new.
All right.
That's cute.
There's just some very blistering, inviting opening arguments. These are getting a little personal there. All right, let's move on to the second team. Team Deckard. You know what a turtle is?
Rick Deckard, as you may or may not know, is a Blade Runner. The term originally comes from a 1979 novella by William S. Burroughs and refers to a smuggler of medical supplies. That fact has no bearing on this match whatsoever, except for the fact that if these original Blade Runners still exist, Major Kusanagi should probably make sure she has access to, like, 12 of them, because she's about to need all the treatment she can get after this match. Blade Runner is basically a cyberpunk noir, and Rick Deckard is basically a cyberpunk noir hero. What does that mean? Well, first of all, it means he's tough, like constantly getting the shit kicked out of him and never staying down, climbing around a building with broken fingers kind of tough. Deckard is so hard-boiled that he never actually cracks, not even against the side of a counter or something. Think about that one for a second. That's some profound egg humor right there.
Yay!
Second of all, being a noir hero means he's a detective, something Kusanagi can't say, particularly while words in some strange other language are coming out of her mouth, even though her lips are moving in totally different ways.
What? What?
Means people won't be able to read her lips. It's an advantage.
That was a dubbing joke. Go with it.
I got that. I just wasn't anticipating you bringing up the fact that she's dubbed against her, but I like it. It's ballsy.
I like it. Fuck dubs.
My man finds the clues, locates the quarry, and helps lead them to their new life of very quiet retirement. His tracking down and eliminating of Zora being the quintessential example. He's also boss at figuring out whether someone is a human or an android, demonstrated most exceptionally when he discovers Rachel is a replicant, despite the fact that she didn't even know. If you want to know Deckard's credentials, just start at the beginning of the film when his old police chief is like, man, I need somebody to hunt and kill not 1, not 2, but 6 crazy Nexus 6 psycho jerks. Who should I call? Oh, right, Rick Deckard. Kusanagi might be a master of melee combat, but that's not going to help her when she has no idea who she's looking for and no means of finding out. And I mean, it's not like Deckard is a slouch in combat. We see him shoot 2 replicants dead in the street, both of whom are moving with the superhuman speed of a Nexus 6. That's some goddamn shooting right there. That's what that is. Deckard also gives Roy 2 good smacks with a pipe during the final chase scene. And while that wasn't nearly enough to bring Roy down, keep in mind, the replicants are just about the toughest kind of android there is. The androids in Blade Runner are manufactured by the Tyrell Corporation. In Game of Thrones, the motto of House Tyrell is growing strong. Therefore, we can assume that the androids manufactured by the Tyrell Corporation have been grown strong, meaning that they are stronger androids than other fictional androids, which makes Deckard's accomplishments even more impressive. Now,
fuck yeah!
all that may be a huge, slowly swaying tower of bullshit, but there's some truth to be found for those willing to sift through it with rubber gloves. Replicants have superhuman physical abilities. Cylons who look human do not. They might be good at fighting, but bash them in the head with a pipe a couple of times and they ain't getting up. Deckard's no Kusanagi, sure, but you don't need to be Kusanagi to deal with one of the 12. You just need to be able and willing to crack a skull with something blunt. And also to ignore the Cylon's poorly written psychobabble long enough to get the job done. Because that's the thing, dude. Even if Kusanagi is somehow able to find the Cylon before Deckard does, she's not going to kill it. She's going to be entranced by the words spoken by the type of individual found in a recent study to be the second loftiest spouter of bullshit in the known world, the first loftiest being the rare Smash Fiction host. Who are you really, and what is reality? Rick Deckard don't give a fuck. That's Roy's bag. That's his arc. But Kusanagi's philosophical personality will be drawn in and dramatically disposed of, because that's what happens when you're basically just a brain in a jar.
When you think of Kusanagi, you think of badassery, heights, punchiness, broodiness, a real fucking Batman type. But now, imagine Batman that had a lot of questions. More questions than he usually has. Questions like, how real am I? And what's inside my brain? And can a machine create its own soul? That's the kind of niggling little concerns that Kusanagi has rolling around in her head. Does that affect her performance at work? Sweet screaming fuck, yes it does. It affects her work to the point that her coworker is warning their boss about her behavior, which, in the detective genre, is how you know shit's getting real. And let's talk about Beto. The deus ex machina that saves her ass and is actively watching for the times when Kusanagi is going off on her own and making terrible decisions. Kusanagi herself says, overspecialization is death. And Kusanagi needs her team to save her from that overspecialization. She approaches things like a tank. And that's real handy if you've got support characters like Bateau to flesh out baddies for you, or government-wide infrastructure to give you the intel you need, or Togusa to point out when someone has snuck into the room. Deckard doesn't need a team to crack the case or take someone out. He's the entire Scooby-Doo team rolled into one and then wrapped into black leather. Kusanagi's got the weakness of being cybernetic. You'd think it's a strength, but it's not the silver bullet you'd think. Having a ghost that's software to the body's hardware means you can be real casual about your body's survival and make decisions that leave you shredded to pieces, which is great if you've got an unlimited budget for bodies and, crucially, someone who knows where to find your dumb fuck corpse. Without Beto there to support Kusanagi, she would have never had a chance to brain dive into that dismembered Ken doll. Sure, she wins hand-to-hand against a guy who's winded and brainwashed, and assassinates a person, and dives into deep and scary water that probably has sharks in it. But Kusanagi vastly overestimates her skills. What character in their right mind would fight a walking tank by themselves and think they could win? Either a character that doesn't give a shit if they die, or a character that doesn't know their own limits. Either way, it's clear that her judgment is dangerous. Kusanagi has entire batches of other agents and infrastructure on her side in the film. She even picks Togusa, the least cyberized guy, because she appreciates that she needs different perspectives. Because when you're flying a helicopter and looking cool, maybe you also need people on the ground and in your ear telling you shit. And that's with one target that is essentially a melted mannequin. And with all that infrastructure, you'd think there's some handbooks or something that say, don't dive in the heads of mysterious cybernetic bodies. But Kusanagi is really single-minded about shit. Single-minded in a way that blinds her to risks and opens her up to mindfuckery. If there's anything more rife with mindfuckery than a Cylon, I cannot imagine what it is. In pursuing Project 2501, she's not even that interested in catching him, and in fact, doesn't catch or dismantle it so much as becomes completely entwined with it. I mean, I don't want to tell her how to do her job, but usually, you don't want to become the people you're tracking. This is her, with a bunch of people on her side against a single malicious entity. Deckard goes against 6 by himself, all of whom are more physically powerful than he is, and he still succeeds. Kusanagi's well-supported efforts, ample skill at guns, her strength, her intelligence, all of it doesn't net her the thing she's trying to get. Well, it does. I mean, in the sense that she becomes one with it, and I guess carries it with her always? So, her ghost has a ghost friend living with it now, which is nice, but she's got everything going for her and pisses it away. Deckard may not have the resources, strength, powerful guns, or a cool helicopter that Kusanagi has, but damn it, he gets results! Does he? Ultimately, this is a face-off of two kinds of detective. Investigator on the edge, with nothing to lose. And investigator pulled out from retirement for one last case. Kusanagi is on the edge, but what she's gonna lose is this match.
Some excellent opening cyber arguments, my robros. Now, let's execute program rebuttals. Team Kusanagi, have you ever actually seen your brain?
You're asking the hard-hitting questions this time.
Has my brain seen itself?
You characterized Kusanagi's behavior throughout the second half of the movie kind of inaccurately. She doesn't ever actually get tricked by the puppet master. She expresses early on throughout the movie a lack of satisfaction with the way she's being treated by the government. Like on the scene with the boat with Bateau, she talks about how she imagines becoming someone else. She says if we ever quit or retire, we'd have to give away our augmented brains and cyborg bodies and there wouldn't be much left of us. And she says, I feel confined, only free to express myself within boundaries. She expresses a lot of wanting to improve herself, not being satisfied with herself, a lot of affection for the puppet master because she feels a lot of kinship with it. And then when the puppet master says, after you've heard my explanation, there's something I want to ask of you, Kusanagi, and later says, I want us to merge, he asks her permission to merge with her. So she allows herself to merge with the puppet master because she wants to improve herself. At no point does he trick her.
No, I don't think we were really arguing that the puppet master tricks her. What we're arguing is that the Cylon's going to trick her because the Cylon is a manipulative douchebag, and to the extent that Kusanagi has any character traits whatsoever, the main one is that she's philosophical and
Got a lot of
deep
existential angst there.
So she's vulnerable to the manipulations of the Cylon. Didn't say anything about the Puppet Master.
Or even just curiosity.
She's not vulnerable to the manipulations of every dumbass that like every cyber problem that comes her way. This is just a thing that happens with the Puppet Master because he's so close to her in that sort of way. If you watch Standalone Complex, she doesn't run into this issue at all. Standalone Complex is a great place to see how she is in a much more day-to-day a very fancy police procedural setting.
The point is not that the Puppet Master manipulates her, or even that she's vulnerable to manipulation in general. She's specifically vulnerable to the kind of manipulation that will be coming at her via a Cylon, because that is their entire MO. They take people who think deep things about reality and identity and religion and all that kinds of shit, and they fuck with their heads, and that's how they survive. And Kusanagi is particularly vulnerable to that form of manipulation.
Yeah, Deckard's never been manipulated by a replicant who he didn't want to be manipulated, not like the one that he runs off with at the end.
Yeah, but that was for sexy reasons. That's different.
Yeah,
this could be a sexy.
She didn't manipulate him by making him question the nature of reality. She manipulated him by taking off her clothes.
Make him question the nature of his dick.
Oh yes, a much more direct, simple form of manipulation.
Yeah, well, we don't know what gender the Cylon's going to be, so I guess if it's female, we might have more problems. But you know,
you sort of mentioned that her awesome shell, that's not going to make her better at doing this. I disagree because like her athletic and acrobatic skills will allow her to move through your meat space better than any meat sack could. And she's going to get to the Cylon way faster and compensate for the grandpa slowness that Deckard seems to have.
Grandpa slowness.
With his fucking map quest
Grandpa leather coat. I was kind of interested that you talked about that because we see parts of that happening, but there's a lot of times whenever it's with quite a bit of help that happens. I mean, she doesn't get to the location with a melted Ken doll on foot. She takes a helicopter, you know what I mean? And whenever
she's not fucking Spider-Man.
I'm not saying she's not
she runs up the side of a 3-story building at one point in the movie when she's chasing the dude on foot who's in the little invisible poncho thing.
She is my point about her not being Spider-Man stands.
No, she has her partner with her, and he makes things a lot easier because then you have this other person who can kind of herd your quarry or can help tire your quarry out to make your life fucking easier.
She's basically going to have everything that Deckard has to help him move around and more. If she needs to run up a building to get somewhere a hell of a lot faster than he can, cool.
Team Deckard, wake up. Time to rebut.
Well, you talked about Kusanagi investigating stuff, and I want to say investigating seems to be actively dangerous to her mental stability because it seems to be the thing that probes her questions because so much of it has to do with the brainwashing. Yes, she can investigate, but it's dangerous to her in a way that it is not dangerous to Deckard. He's an incurious man about some things.
I mean, there's a lot of other things that are dangerous to him.
Like people punching him.
Yeah, but as that famous Chumbawamba song, he falls down, but he gets up again.
That's right. You're never going to keep him down, I believe.
Never.
I mean, considering Rachel isn't going to be there to shoot his problems in the back of the head for him.
He was doing okay in that match. He was doing okay.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was, before she shot him. That happens once, and as we've said many times, guys, we're all Disney villains here. All right? We didn't get our final quarry, you didn't get your final quarry.
Okay. You know? Let's talk about the tank. The only reason that she's fighting that tank when she's clearly outnumbered by it is because Division 6 is on its way, and she knows they're going to cover everything up. You talked about her not knowing her limits and, fighting against that tank, and the reason that she lost and was, trying to pull it open despite the fact she tore herself in half, it was because this is not a normal circumstance for her, of her, just trying to catch the perp. It was extraordinary circumstances.
Well, you talked about how one of these characters is looking forward and the other one is looking backward, and it was very fancy, and I appreciated it.
Yeah,
but
me too.
What you're actually saying is that Deckard finds and uses physical evidence to catch his prey, and Kusanagi does not. So
when you need to get a book, Miles, or you need some information, do you go to the library or do you search on the internet?
You don't have an unlimited tech advantage in this match, though. Your character's never been to this city before, or at least hasn't been here in a while. You can't just assume that huge network advantage. And without it, Kusanagi is going to be pretty damn crippled when it comes to actually finding the Cylon.
I'm also going
I
to say,
think we
like,
can assume
I
that.
think it's a pretty safe advantage to have a computer in your brain.
As opposed to
How?
Deckard, who doesn't even have a cell phone.
like,
He uses a freaking payphone.
Who's he going to need to call? He doesn't need to do shit. He does shit by himself.
he doesn't need anybody. He needs, like, that jacket and a glass of whiskey and a lager drink to continue the rest of that
If
song.
he gets given a bunch of, like, manila folders full of photos and info on the people he's hunting at the beginning, which he does not getting in this case.
All I'm hearing from you is that we're going to be catching the guy while you're busy setting up your Wi-Fi network and trying to figure out whether or not you want to share it with your friends, and why is it making that weird crackly guitar sound? This isn't dial-up. What's happening here?
We have to find a good pun name to name the Wi-Fi network. Right now I'm leaning towards Wi-Fu.
And god damn it, I accidentally put my computer brain on fucking airplane mode. What am I going to do now? That's the kind of shit that you're going to be dealing with while we go all analog
I was
on this
not
bitch.
expecting these sorts of rebuttals. I'm going to go ahead and say it right
Also,
now.
wait, I want to say one more thing. You guys had to go against, like, melted Castlevania dude, and then, I mean, he looked a lot like that dude. A lot like that. What's his name? Jeff. Okay. And, like, we had to go against Rutger Hauer, so just, how dare you?
Are you joking? He didn't even have a gun! We had to fight, like,
those
dudes with guns
piercing
and a tank!
Scandinavian eyes and a will to eat someone's face and a white dove. If you faced up
dude,
against
that's
that,
Rutger Hauer.
you would fucking shit. We all would.
Maybe that dove had a gun. We don't know.
Man, there were some weird points brought up there, I'm not gonna lie, but I like it. I like it a lot. Our journey has taken us to a great many smoke-filled, neon-lit locations in the cyberpunk noir landscape of San Francisco, but our heroes have finally closed in on their quarry. Breaking their way into a secret warehouse hideout on the docks of the city, Deckard and Kusanagi glare at each other briefly before turning to face their target, the Cylon known only as Andrew Marin. As they advance, the Cylon turns to them.
Number 13.
Yep. Tears sparkle in his eyes as he lays out an impassioned plea for mercy. Yes, he was originally dispatched to Earth to destroy it, but his time amongst humans has shown him a better way. He has fallen in love with the human race and simply wants to be left in peace. Of course, our heroes see through that bullshit in a San Francisco second. And when Andrew Marin realizes that his bluff didn't work, he instead lunges for the doomsday device he'd been constructing in secret. Intended to open a dimensional rift that would transform the Earth into a form more suitable for Cylon colonization, Andrew Marin still had quite a ways to go before it was fully functional, but as Deckard and Kusanagi trained their guns on him, Andrew was able to activate the one program he'd managed to finish before they arrived. C: /lightning round.
Oh, shit.
Dimensional energy cascades out from the device, enveloping Marin, Deckard, Kusanagi, and the warehouse and surrounding docks area. The wave dissipates almost immediately, but its effects are apparent. All three combatants have been transformed into articulated figurines. Their bodies are cylindrical, their hands are simple C-shaped clamps, and their hair is attached to their head via a stud. Similarly, their environment has been transformed into simple plastic bricks. While Deckard and Kusanagi struggle to come to grips with their new environment, Andrew Marin wastes no time and immediately begins deconstructing the environment, reassembling nearby blocks until, seconds later, he has constructed a massive war machine and begins to move toward his nemesis. Quick, advocates! You and your surroundings have changed into easily manipulatable plastic bricks. With these bricks, you can quickly construct fully functional weapons, vehicles, and mechs. Tell me why you will do better in these new circumstances, and what you will create with your new environment that will be sufficient to beat not only the deadly and devious Cylon Andrew Marin, but also each other. Better hurry though, because one of those giant plastic death machines is heading your way right now.
This episode not brought to you by Legos.
But it could have been. Your move, Lego Core. Team Kusanagi went first in the main round, so Team Deckard will be starting us off in the lightning round. Team Deckard.
Obviously, the first thing that Rick Deckard is going to create is the thing that he should have had all along for this entire match, which is a pair of skis that are super sharp and just like, that have like blades on their runners, if you will.
Right. I see.
So
I just thought I'd spell it out. There seemed to be a dearth of just terrifyingly loud laughter, so I just was wondering about maybe people needed it more explained better. Anyway, he's going to use those to kind of feint at his enemy, the Cylon, and then ostensibly it's going to look like he's going to be fleeing, but he will actually be building. And as Kusanagi and the Cylon follow him, and they see, what the hell is he doing? What is he building? What are these things rising up around us? Oh shit, Rick Deckard is building a utopia.
Oh! Miles!
What's he building in there?
It comes together like just something beautiful, this shining, perfect world where everyone is happy. Everyone has the smiley faces. No one has the frowny or the angry faces. You know, everything works. There's no Lego exploitation. There's no Lego war. There's no Lego disease. And
there's Lego soap to wash off the Lego grime.
Yeah. And, you know, he just continues building this. And Kusanagi and the Cylon live there for years. They get comfortable. They fall in Lego love. They get a Lego house. They get Lego kids. And just everything is happy and perfect and wonderful. Until it all comes crashing the fuck down, because it's actually a dystopia in disguise, because this is Rick Deckard we're talking about, and Rick Deckard knows how to hide something, how things are hidden behind facades. And so, after years of getting accustomed to this Lego utopia, it all comes crashing down and it's revealed to be a corrupt, horrible facade, and they can't even take it anymore, and they themselves remove their little heads from the pegs. And that's how Deckard beats you, by shattering your brain.
I wanna go back a little bit to the middle period of Miles' work of fiction. It's gonna be an ice skating based utopia, and the only reason I'm saying this is because I really want you to picture Rick Deckard Lego figurine with his regular costume, but reimagined as something Johnny Weir would wear. And then skating and doing like a triple axle rod or whatever they're called. One of those. But the thing that he will build that will truly take them down will be a psychologist's couch. They will sit upon it. And there will be a psychologist, a little Lego psychologist there who will go, so tell me about your childhood. And then, what do you think that means about your past? How does that relate to your future? How do you see yourself? That's
when the dystopia thing starts to happen.
They destroy the utopia themselves with their own realization of who and what they are. There was never utopia there at all. It was all inside.
And maybe there was, but maybe they were the ones who ruined it.
Okay. Team Kusanagi, what have you built for me?
I was thinking that in order to overthrow this dystopia that Deckard has built, Kusanagi is going to create like a mobile base for herself. It's going to be built out of a combination of like a Halloween Lego set and also like a licensed Super Mario Lego set. It's going to be a giant like white floating base in the shape of a Halloween ghost, and it's going to shoot spiky blue shells out of it. So her weapon is actually going to be shells in a ghost.
That's adorable!
Oh, God.
Colin, the ironic thing is you didn't even need to shoehorn in the Halloween set because there would super be ghosts that you could build in a Mario set.
But that's true. That's true.
That's still really good.
And if we know there's any one weapon that can depose a tyrant who does not deserve to be on the throne, it is the blue shell.
Oh, man.
I don't think you're going to be in any kind of mental condition to do that, buddy. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, the other thing we're making is little Lego antipsychotic medication.
Okay.
That Kusanagi's going to be eating.
Tell me more.
Little
like
anxiety
fucking
meds.
Pez.
Little Lego tinfoil hats that you're going to be wearing.
Yeah.
Did the other team discuss how their character was going to deal with now being toys? Because that's what you described, right? That we're now toys.
Yeah, you turn into Lego people.
Yeah, first of all, I think Kusanagi's going to have way less of a problem moving in her new shell as opposed to the formerly meat Deckard, who is going to suddenly have very squeaky, difficult to move joints. You got to break those in a little bit. I was thinking, what did you describe the Cylon was going to...
He made a large, nondescript war machine.
Is it as big as a moon? Because guess what Lego has is motherfucking Death Star sets. So we're going to build that bitch.
Man.
And the way I see it, Lego's
Are we going to build a ghost that shoots Death Stars?
Yeah, that's way better than a ghost ray coming out of a Death Star. The ghost that shoots Death Stars.
I'm just gonna like shoot a blue shell down that small thermal exhaust port. That's all I'm
You ain't fucking Luke Skywalker. You ain't even Han Solo.
Well,
so
Miles, you're gonna have to cut that out because I'm definitely putting that in Extraordinary League at some point. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I wasn't really paying attention to that last part. I've been saving up a batch of life model decoys for a rainy day, and it looks like they all just gained sentience and have started to run amok. I swear, this is the last thing I need right now. So, I'll try to think of a verdict for this match while I track down these little bastards. And when I get back, you know what? Actually, when I get back, maybe you should ask me something that only I would know. You know, just to be on the safe side.
So, do you guys want to hear my alternate opening stingers? That
Yes, I do.
Use? So we got Deckard. Didn't your mama tell you not to run with blades?
Okay.
It's only going to take one shell for Deckard to get ghosted.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Heroes in a ghost shell, cyborg power.
Dan will appreciate that when he comes back.
2.5 out of 5 stars.
What does Kusanagi losing to Deckard have in common with Electric Sheep? They're both dreams!
Oh,
I like that one.
You know what? I think that's my favorite because it's so long, and then like it's so long that you're not sure what the payoff will be, and then you get to it.
As Shakespeare said, length is the soul of wit.
I would then have immediately
sometimes it is.
rebutted your opening stinger by pointing out that we don't actually know if those dreams exist.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
We don't know if androids
Because
dream.
do they dream?
It's the question.
Kit, you said you really hated the movie. Did you hate it for a lot
I
of reasons,
actually
or-
disliked both movies. I know
Really?
that's
That is
yeah.
unusual.
Both of them have great setting, and I think that's what basically kind of saves them a little bit. And again, I guess Ghost in the Shell also has that kind of cool philosophy thing. But yeah, they're like Blade Runner's just kind of slow and then gets really weird at the end.
It gives all the signals that tell you action movie, and then it does none of the things that you expect, which is
Well, exactly. That's what I love about it so much.
That's not what necessarily bothers me about it. I mean, I like the cinematography and the setting and stuff, but like,
Super
I'm not really that
cohesive
impressed by
set
the
and
script,
costume.
honestly.
They should have brought in Philip K. Dick to write it. You should read
Yeah,
you should read the book, kid. It's a lot better.
Oh, I've heard really good things about it. As for Ghost in the Shell, I mean, it clearly suffers from them trying to condense the manga plot into a movie. Because there is so much exposition. I cannot deal with
dude,
it.
I
then-
couldn't.
Yeah, the biggest thing I was running into with trying to write my opening argument was just everything I wanted to say took so much time to explain. Like, trying to explain these plots in, like, the TV show that she was able to unravel and how she was able to figure them out. Like, it took, like, a whole page to talk about, well, she found this clue, and then that clue led to this thing, and then it did that.
That was
it
your
just
problem
like, we
with
just can't.
rebuttals, too, buddy.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
We ran out of time so hard. It was just like, yeah, I couldn't, like, say it all.
It defies
It was-
being concise.
Even
Right,
the
right.
film Ghost in the Shell, I had to read multiple synopses of it, and I was still rereading them because I was like, wait, all that happened in 2 hours? What the fuck?
I'm sure the manga's better, ignoring some of the very, very, very obvious, like, seinen stuff in there. Seinen manga is manga targeted at men.
Oh,
And
yeah.
boy, is it, like, super beating you over the head with how, like, look at this, men, it is.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
because
pretty
Kusanagi's
intense.
power being invisible while she's naked.
No, there is a straight up VR sex scene, like, very, very straight up porn, like,
Yeah.
sex scene in the manga.
I read about that,
Yeah.
and I was very intrigued by the fact that this was then worked into the world. I don't know whether it was meant to be cohesive or if it was just like, oh, we're just going to explain why the sex is happening this way. But their argument was that heterosexual e-sex is highly frowned upon, but homosexual e-sex is less damaging. And so then, and they did it with between two women because the artist allegedly didn't want to draw a male butt, which I'm like, they're the fucking same butt. Butts are butts. That's a test I would want to see if any of us could pass. Male butt, female butt, gender creative butt. Who knows?
You have to explain, of course, why your main character would be homosexual, because, like, you can't just have them be homosexual. Like, that would just...
right,
That would be
come from-
wrong.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Dan, look at all these butts and then tell us, and then we'll know you're the real Dan. Wait, what are famous butts that Dan might know?
That's
Miranda
the best we could
from
come
Mass
up with,
Effect.
buddy.
okay, butt
It's just a picture
identification.
of Miranda's butt.
Joke's on you, none of them are Miranda's butt. Boom.
Oh, okay. Well, it's you
what?
then. Fine.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, you
I told you we should have put
pretty good
hexagons on some of them.
I know.
Okay, starting off, matches are hard to judge. Matches are harder to judge when the characters are bringing different types of skills to the table, because then you kind of have to weigh the value of those skills and just how much of an advantage one skill gives over the other. And then, matches are really hard to judge when one team, Deckard, does extremely well in opening arguments, and the other team, Kusanagi, does extremely well during rebuttals. I found that recently I've had to kind of picture these scenarios just so I can kind of get a feel for the way that I think these factors are going to sort of weigh in. And after going through it and really thinking through the capabilities and the way I see this playing out, I think the character who's going to win this in the end is Deckard.
Whoa.
So,
Holy shit.
Oh, Dan, you're gonna get haunted tonight.
but
Wrong!
Yeah.
in fairness, Kit, I was going to get haunted either way. So, although maybe less vocally by a literal physical person telling me I'm wrong.
Yeah. Trust me. This ghost.
Whoa.
I think that either of them could physically take out the Cylon. I think that Kusanagi would do it much, much faster and much more easily with all the physical and technological advantages that she has. But when you look at the overall sort of setup and scenario, I think one of the strongest points that Team Deckard brought up is that Kusanagi is working outside of her comfort zone. She doesn't have her team. She isn't working within the sort of Tokyo technological setup. You know, this is a different city. Deckard has shown that he's more skilled at working by himself and tracking down someone using methods that don't require a lot of tech or a team. Whereas I think Kusanagi is going to be a little more out of her depth. And that time advantage is going to give Deckard the prep time that he needs in order to do what he needs to do. Again, it was not by much at all. And you guys all did a really, really good job. But that's where I have to come down with this one.
Man, you guys scared the shit out of me, Team Kusanagi.
Yeah, good game, you guys. Seriously.
I have to go hide under
That
the
was
bed
awesome.
now.
We have a little bit of catching up to do. Over to Twitter, thank you to Lucas Brown, Marissa Bond, Sharon Holden Schneiderman, Florian, Baron von Gravestock, Cosplay Fiend, The Seafaring Otaku, Mike Booch, Rafael Medina, Vander Turner, Grayson Leal, and Shannon Manor. Over to Tumblr, thank you to Jeep Rhyme, Changing Shades, Mr. Man 334, The Gods Have Spoken, Nerdy Irish Girl, JR Davalos, Fandom Chili, Primer Cancelier, no? Canceller? Primer I don't know. You guys have weird names. Blog for Freaks, By Fortune Fire, Eruvadril. See, I can say that one. That's kind of elfy. And Sid Rabbit Blog. On Facebook, thank you to Daniel Kidder, Jeffrey Ketchum, Viola Sanderlin, Robert Ramsey, and Sharon Schneiderman. Also, oh my god, guys, go on the Facebook page and look at what David Waters did.
Yep.
He did a good.
It's
It's
so
He did
real
a really
good.
good.
It's so
He
good.
made comics based off of the baseball lightning round from McGonagall versus Weatherwax.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Those comics are just a delight.
Really good job.
I had the urge to eat them because they made me so happy.
So we want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon who have helped to make this show possible. Specifically, I want to thank Tyler Fullman and Andrew Marin, two of the featured patrons on this week's episode and were written in as characters.
Yeah, you got to be a San Francisco police chief and Cylon, so that's pretty good.
In addition, I also want to thank Neil Butler, who is the first of our patrons to get a dedicated match in. If you are a patron at the $10 a month level for 3 months, then we ask you for a list of matches that you would like to see us make. We choose one of them, and we make it. No waiting in line, no waiting for us to get stuff together. You just tell us which ones you're interested in, and we turn it into a match just like this one. This was one of the ones that he suggested. We really loved the idea, and there you go. That was dictated by Neil Butler. And one other thing about Patreon, We do bonus content every month, and last month's content, which just dropped about a week and a half ago, I think, by the time this episode goes out, was a bonus episode of Extraordinary League. So if you like League and you want to see what happens when the players end up playing a group of characters that the fans vote on them playing, check it out. It was a lot of fun to write and run, and I think it ended up being very fun and very goofy.
Yeah,
Can you
man.
say who won? Because it's kind of like the Expendables. They're all misfits.
Yeah, it was a weird team, to be sure.
I was pretty stoked to be able to play a professional wrestler, and oh wait, that didn't. Damn it! Now I'm sad.
You did an awesome job. With
You
who
play one
played.
in real
Thank
life.
you.
Well, I mean, everyone knows who Miles played because we released a little character creation
That's right.
episode.
That's right.
not a secret.
Yeah, Miles was Brock Sampson. It was great. Everyone was fantastic in
God.
it. So,
I-
yeah, check it out if you enjoy Extraordinary League. So I wanted to get to a question that was asked of us, but we didn't get a chance to get to on our second anniversary match because we are a long-winded people. This question comes to us from Molly Hayes Hernandez. If you don't mind me asking, why the futz do you like Avengers Arena? It's not well written or in character, in my opinion, but, well, if you can't tell, I really love the Runaways. And yes, given some of the match ideas that Molly has sent us, it's very clear that she likes the Runaways quite a bit.
Well, I mean, her
I'm
name
Googling-
itself.
Yes, indeed.
I know Dan and I have both read Avengers Arena. Haven't
I think it's just you and me that's read Avengers Arena here, Miles.
Okay. Well, we can
so-
go into it because I fucking love Avengers Arena.
Yeah, to be fair, it's been a few years since I read it, so my comments about it are going to be kind of general, but I felt like it introduced some original and interesting characters. It brought back some characters that had been underutilized, like my beloved Darkhawk. It made Arcade sinister and threatening in a way that I don't really ever remember him being before. It was really unpredictable, and it seemed to have real actual stakes and weight in a way that a lot of modern day comics just don't, particularly comics that are aimed at young people. It reminded me a lot of some of the best moments of from Song of Ice and Fire, where you realize that even the main characters aren't necessarily safe from some really dire consequences. I don't know. That's my thought on that. What do you say, Miles?
I think the characterization was really good, to be honest. Like, I really loved Avengers Arena. Got me into going back and reading Avengers Academy, and I thought the characters from that were brought over really well. I thought the Runaways were brought over really well. I mean, the big Nico thing that happens in that story is like one of my favorite moments of hers, and you're damn sure it's gonna be brought up if and when she gets in a Smash Fiction match. So it's different in that it's something that Marvel Comics and I think comics in general kind of don't do very often, but it's also similar enough to other things like a Battle Royale that you can kind of do callbacks to it and invest it with some pop cultural meaning. And seeing that story played out with these characters, I think we're able to really explore them more and explore them, you know, just who they are and what they do in a situation that, frankly, a lot of comic book characters don't get into. So yeah, that's why I love Arena. Undercover was kind of meh, but that part of that was because it was rushed. So
Yeah, it definitely felt rushed. But yeah, thanks for your question, Molly. We know you came over from Tighten Up the Defense, so thanks for showing interest and giving us some really good suggestions that we definitely have on our short list of things we'd like to do. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, by popular demand, Xenomorphs versus Tyranids versus the Zerg. Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going. And we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
if you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
For clarity's sake, Team Deckard, you referred to six replicants
Yeah.
that he was hunting down. My understanding was that there were 4 that he was hunting down.
There were 6 originally, 2 of them got fried.
Before he gets assigned the case. I was
No,
going to say, much
no, he
like
get-
when people are listing off the number of people that they've slept with, it's usually safe that you can subtract 2.
He gets assigned the case
What? Is
with
that
6.
a rule?
He gets assigned the case with 6.
Oh, shit.
And actually, that applies with the 4 as well, because, one of the people Deckard was
right.
hunting was killed by Rachel, and the other one died of old age.
All right.
It's not your fucking
mean,
rebuttal.
I haven't even introduced rebuttals. We're not in rebuttals.
I was gonna
that was
say,
a judge's
more-
clarification.
More than Kusanagi.
He is assigned to catch 6. 2 of them die early on. It had nothing
Okay.
to do
No,
with him.
when
not
he's getting
his
assigned the
fault.
case, he's told that 2 are dead.
So you don't get
Okay,
the
all right.
Sorry.
The point has been clarified for the judge. Thank you
Sorry.
all so much for being so cooperative.
God, we need a gavel for you.
I'm going in a very possibly not where we're meant to go direction, but yeah. You know what? You go, and I'll
course,
see.
I mean,
That's the
I'll
story
see
of
what
Megan Bob's
happens.
lightning rounds.
Sit ye down, children. Let me sing you.